Hello and welcome to African Voices platform. My name is Chihana. Today we are joined by Chief Inspector Laurie Millington of South Yorkshire Police, coordinator for the local implementation of the Police Race Action Plan, and chair of the force's Black Heritage Action and Advisory Group. Now in 2024, South Yorkshire's Race Action Plan set out 6 strategic work streams, from building an anti-racist workforce to ensuring proportionate use of police powers to rebuild trust and equity for Black communities and colleagues. So today, Chief Inspector Millington will share real-world challenges and successes of embedding anti-racist practices in policing and discuss how South Yorkshire is co-designing solutions with the very communities that it serves. Welcome to African Voices platform, Chief Inspector Millington.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for joining us. What is the Race Action Plan?
So nationally, the Race Action Plan was developed in 2022, where the National Police Chiefs Council, which is the coordination group for all chief officers, and the College of Policing launched the National Police Race Action Plan, which followed on from obviously the onset of from George Floyd, etc. And it was there to implement changes required and to improve outcomes for Black people and those who work both within policing and those in the communities that we serve and interact with policing, as a national framework initially.
Right. And then how did we get to the South Yorkshire specific?
So from 2022, obviously South Yorkshire being a force within the 43 national forces, we were all coordinated, and we set our actions to drive activity around the national plan.
Yeah.
Initially it was slow, and it was people sort of supporting that through their daily business, but in November 2023 it was identified that we hadn't progressed as much as we needed to in relation to the national plan, because we hadn't got a central coordinator.
So this was the South Yorkshire one
that
recognised
that. South Yorkshire. So at the time, the Deputy Chief Constable at the time, Tim Forber, put out for a coordinating role to try and pull things together to make things work for South Yorkshire and see how that would work. And that's when I was initially seconded from my role within neighbourhood policing to come and help, along with another member of staff from our team, Pamela Russell, to try and progress things forward with some dedicated resources to see what was going through. So we came into role early January 2024 to try and progress the national plan. The national plan is massive and covers all aspects of policing, and where national policing we have to take into account every police force is different. So initially my role was to look at the national plan and see how this would work within South Yorkshire, and then how the South Yorkshire Police's localised plan came about in 2024 was lots of work that conducted in relation to bringing the national plan into a more simplistic format, into prioritised actions that were specific for the communities of South Yorkshire. And that's where we got a key delivery plan of work to come from that.
Okay, how many of you are working on this within the force?
It's difficult to put numbers on. So I'm the coordinator, and I've got 2 officers that work with me full time on the role, working on specifically for the Police Race Action Plan. But how we try to work it is embed areas of business within key thematic areas of business within policing. So, for example, we have a stop and search lead or a use of force lead for the force. So it's about working with these other people to embed how the Police Race Action Plan is going to work into their areas of business. So there's lots of people working on different things, but the actual core role of the plan is myself and 2. Yeah.
All right. Okay. And then how does so I think how I've understood it as well from what I've read is that you have an independent advisory group, then you've got the Black Heritage Action and Advisory Group, and then so how do you map how those share responsibility and how issues escalated?
Yeah, so obviously the independent advisory group is completely external to policing. So we've got a group, and it's specifically made up of individuals from different areas of South Yorkshire, from different Black heritage backgrounds, that bring a plethora of experience in different areas of the community, and hold different roles within the community, to be that independent voice, to help to keep us as South Yorkshire Police accountable for our actions, and to advise us on the actions and things that we're taking, that to make sure that they are specific for the communities that we serve, and to give that community voice. The Black Action and Advisory Group is an internal group, so that's our Black and Black Heritage officers and staff, and it's about having that internal voice. So again, within policing, when we are making decisions around prioritising actions, so the localised plan was actually written in consultation with both of these groups. So before it was agreed and published, it's got the internal voice of our own staff and the external voice of our communities through our independent advisory group within it, so that it's not just myself and other senior officers within policing making decisions about how to improve things for black people. It's got that real voice in about what improves things for people, and I think that's why it's really key to be around it, because it isn't about what policing thinks we should do for black people. It's coming from the voice of our communities and the voice of the people that it affects. Right.
So how would somebody like me, just a citizen that's sitting on the periphery of all this but really invested, how would I access them? Are there minutes that are made available, the processes?
So through the Independent Advisory Group, we've got 2 co-chairs that are available, and then the idea of the Independent Advisory Group is that that's independent to us. So even though we work with them, they collect the minutes, they chair the minutes, and they held us accountable through those. In relation to the internal groups, obviously that's internal for staff and something that I run and hold, but we do have different items on agendas that, and people that can speak and ask questions about that. If people wanted to speak to our internal voices, then it'd be we have a police race action plan email address that comes through to the team. People can contact us directly, or likewise through the co-chairs for the Independent Advisory Group if they're interested in becoming part of that or knowing more about it or feeding into it.
And this is a South Yorkshire specific communication channel that you've
described? Yes, that's specific to South Yorkshire. Obviously.
What's the remit of South Yorkshire? What are we talking about? Barnsley?
So for South Yorkshire Police, the areas that we cover are Sheffield, Rotherham, Barnsley and Doncaster.
Lovely, thank you. Do you see other opportunities for people to engage? I mean, this is quite good that we have you, so thank you so much. But what are the other opportunities apart from through the Independent Advisory Group and the email? Are there community events you host? Or?
So there's various community events that are held through local neighbourhood policing teams, and through our Positive Action Sergeant, who works looking at targeted engagement activities for underrepresented communities that are set up by the police, but that's generally set up with people that have got a relationship and we know about. If it was for people that thought, how do we speak to the police about that? Again, we've got a Positive Action email address, or through the Police Race Action Plan email address. Get in contact with us. If people want to engage with us and to build up those dialogues early, we can have those conversations and make sure that's set up so that we can build those engagement activities moving forward if we already got those communication channels in place.
Right. Do you know, I was just thinking, one of the things I talked about was the Black Heritage Action Advisory Group. And if somebody of non-Black African heritage is watching this and listening in, is there an alternative that people can tap into, can look for as well?
Yeah, so obviously the Police Race Action Plan and why this is specific is specific, and that, we've been asked the question, does it open up for wider? But the reason for the Police Race Action Plan, it is specific to Black and Black heritage communities, but there's lots of opportunities wider in relation to other independent advisory groups, other engagement activities and things that we have in relation to. So it's open to them wider. And likewise, if people aren't from a Black heritage community and want to reach out to put them into the right just lost my train of thought, apologies. Get them into contact with the right person for the neighbourhood policing area to provide those engagement opportunities, then we can gladly do that because through one channel engagement is what we want to do with our communities. So, and if they don't know the channels, you can link out through the South Yorkshire Police website who the neighbourhood inspectors are for each area, and you should be able to get the details from there. But likewise, anybody is available to contact through the Police Race Action Plan email address, and we can put that in place for them.
Put that in place, yeah, and it's there. But this specifically emerged out of, as you said, the national, the NPCC's work, right?
Yeah.
So how does the NPCC's, and in case people did not pick that up earlier on, so NPCC is National Police Chiefs Council, which helped shape this. So how does, what role does the NPCC still play in independent scrutiny and oversight of what you're doing here in the local governance side of things?
So in relation to the NPCC, the National Police Chiefs Council, they're the governing body that buy into the National Police Race Action Plan and decide the funding that goes into the national team. And obviously that drives activity around how each force decides how they're going to embed this within how each chief officer is going to embed the Police Race Action Plan within their own force area. So obviously the gold lead for the Police Race Action Plan is our Deputy Chief Constable Sarah Pullman, who's our sponsor for this and is driving the activity through the Police Race Action Plan. So through the National Police Chiefs Council, that is more national for everybody, but we've really got that buy-in through our senior officer team.
Okay, I see. That sounds, it makes sense then. Yeah, in that case, I can see that. So I was also wondering about dissenting views within governance forums, for example. Have any surfaced? How are those resolved within the
Sorry,
different?
could you
So like any dissenting views amongst, because there are various entities that play a role in the work that you're doing now. So are there any formal or informal channels that exist for advisors to raise objections, maybe, or alternative perspectives that are in place for you?
In relation to sort of political issues, that would be more governed about how, through what the Deputy Chief Constable, so I probably wouldn't be in a position to answer those kind of questions. We have a governance structure in place where we have silver and gold meetings that run through those structures. So I align to the Deputy Chief Constable, so I probably wouldn't be able to answer that question in the best way, if that's... So apologies for that.
That's okay.
Just because I, as long as my work aligns to what the Deputy Chief Constable is agreed to and what she wants for South Yorkshire, then my actions come from that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, okay. Let's talk about, I think, well, you mentioned earlier before we went live that there's scope for training, there are plans like that. What does that look like?
Yeah, so at the minute, we've developed one thing that we, as part of one of the key theme areas in relation to building an anti-racist, inclusive and informed workforce, we identified that there was potentially an opportunity to have some kind of inclusion training to equip our staff better to understand around different cultural backgrounds and mainly to understand their own biases and how that may interact in policing, incorporating a little bit of black history in relation to understanding where that lower trust and confidence comes from and the impact it has on policing in general, and why certain black communities may have a lower trust and confidence in policing than other communities. So we did a review of our training and looking at where there were gaps, and then we are currently in the stages of developing a training programme that's going to be rolled out for all of our officers and staff, and it's a way of helping to support our staff understand their own biases and develop and give them a skill set that they haven't done, but to sort of support that their development around thinking differently and understanding and widening it out. And I think it's really key that it's impactful in how we deliver it, with the right people delivering it with the different lived experiences, and just opening people's eyes, because people come into policing from all backgrounds, and we've all got different lived experiences, but then we come into a role where we are then open to working and supporting everybody, some of which people's backgrounds we don't understand. And I think it's really relevant that we support and equip our officers to understand, like you say, our own lived experiences, others, and support them to sort of work better moving forwards and understanding around that. So it is in its development framework, and we're hoping to go live with it in September 2025.
September 2025. I'm intrigued by the idea of, and I think I actually like it personally, but of different lived experiences coming into that training. So is that training, the training is coming in externally, or it's within? Is it, when you say different lived experiences will lead on that training?
Yeah, so it's not been finalised how we kind of do it. It's going to be delivered by people with different lived experience backgrounds from within the force.
From within
so
the force.
Different, so
okay.
Delivered. That they're going to be the trainers, and we're doing some train the trainer programs, because we've got our trainers, as every organisation does that run it. But what we've identified is not all of our trainers have the right lived experience to deliver this with the right impact. Yeah. So we're going out to our force and utilising resources that we've got to say who is going to be best to do that and deliver this with impact, so that people understand the message that's behind the training.
Okay, good. So do you know, I mean, so it's since 2022, do you know of any models around the country outside of South Yorkshire that have already started the training, for example?
Yes, so I know that Thames Valley have run out some training. Nottinghamshire, I've been out and reviewed their training. Yeah. West Yorkshire Police reviewed their training, and there are other forces across that are delivering certain trainings and everyone's going down a slightly different way of to how they're doing it. Yeah. So we've taken kind of best practice of what's going on nationally, and that's the link between local and national. Is we all have different force areas, so that and have different communities within it, so we have different priorities, but key actions and where best practice is, we share it nationally to see. So we go out and see what's working and sort of support and take best practice from other forces and link in to see how it would be best and develop. So we've done that piece of work as well.
I'm intrigued by the what you would say you think would be some. Of course, you're still working on it. You haven't settled or decided on it. But is there one thing about some of the models you've seen in other places that you think this could be good for here as well? Could work?
I think the main thing that we picked up from it was who delivers the training, and that's why we're talking about stuff. So if you just have a generic trainer who's learning the content to deliver it, and even though they've got training experience, they might not be the right person to do. Whereas when you've got somebody delivering some content with the lived experience that relates to the content that's being provided, it was so much more impactful. So obviously the content is not being finalised, so I can't discuss that at this moment. Yeah. But the key theme that I picked up from going out and viewing training from other forces was the delivery of it and how impactful it was, and also the length of the training, and where, because everyone had different times. We went from some people having half a day, some people having an hour, some people up to having 2 days around that, and it was around how much information are people going to retain to make this the most impactful process. So the two key things for me really, other than the content, was who delivers this and the amount of time that it's able to retain that impactful information, because we want people to have the best training available when we're putting so much work into it.
Thank you. Can we talk about this report that it's very local to here, and I was wondering if it's if it resonates and if you had any comments. So in 2022 there was a report which suggested that South Yorkshire's police academy cohort grew by 25%. Is that correct? Does that sound like something?
I wouldn't know the exact numbers without having to check, but we did have an uplift programme, so there was an increase through that time.
Okay, so it said in 2022 a report suggests that South Yorkshire's police academy cohort grew by 25% in Black heritage recruits after co-designing a policing degree intake. And with Sheffield Hallam University.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you recognise that?
So we used to have a programme. I'm not going to remember what it's called because they've all got little acronyms. But we moved to having a degree holder or a non-degree entry holder programme, but it was through a partnership with Sheffield Hallam University to take an uptake. So if you already had a degree, there's one route into policing. Yeah. If you don't have a degree, it gives people the opportunity of an extended student officer period to receive a degree as part of their training.
Okay. Are there any similar partnerships that you think have worked before that could be championed a bit more to do this? Because it sounds like this was good, at least in the way of recruitment of black
And we're doing a review in relation to recruitment, and through the new Positive Action Sergeant who works under me, we've got Sergeant Joe Gordine, we are looking at increasing our partnerships with both of the universities in Sheffield, Sheffield College, and then looking into specific schools as well around having a short, medium, longer term plan as to how do we make policing a more employer of choice for people from different backgrounds, to gauge that interest early doors, and to say, actually, how are we targeting the right people to go out and to explain things in the right way and getting the right messaging out to people so that they know what challenges and barriers are. And we're also doing a piece of work looking at, for underrepresented groups, where are the challenges and barriers that we're facing and how we can kind of overcome them through that, whether that's in relation to not holding a driving licence, for example, and what can we kind of look at and do through there. Okay,
right. I think part of that co-designing process is that it also builds a bit more trust. I think the relationships, because you co-design such programs, right? They're co-designed by the police and the partners, is that correct?
Yeah, for the university. So yeah. I don't know the ins and outs of the training because I've not really been involved through that recruitment process. But there's a specific policing element to it, and then a university element where officers have to hit such criteria within policing and then do so many modules within the university as well.
Okay, and then outside the university, are there programs where because there's more relationship building, I think, within the communities, at least an attempt to do that. Are there programs that are being co-designed that you would speak to, that you know of previously? Not that I know of
previously in relation to working like that. I think like in relation to partnerships, there's lots of partnership working that's working through different elements of policing. And specific to the work that I do through the Race Equality Partnership in Sheffield and the Doncaster Anti-Racism Steering Group that I work part of, it's about that collaborative working with various statutory, voluntary and other organisations where we're sharing key messages and themes in what we're doing. So obviously there was a Race Equality Commission that's been out for some times and working into that. So how does our work feed into these partnerships and how do we work together to support what we're doing? And mainly through those two forums, the Race Equality Partnership and the Doncaster Anti-Racism Steering Group for the work that I do. Obviously there's lots of partnerships that policing work in my area of business. There are two key partnerships and where it brings all sort of key leaders around that to discuss what works well and to share best practice and advice and see how we can work better together. Because if we can share learning with other establishments, then we're not replicating stuff that's done.
Is it going well? I usually find challenges sometimes because of bureaucracy within.
And I think in the world that I do, it's quite good in relation to sharing information, how we can work together. So last year in October 2024, we co-hosted a Black History Month with South Yorkshire Fire and Rescue and Yorkshire Ambulance Service, and previously South Yorkshire Police have done Black History Month in isolation for South Yorkshire Police employees, which is open internally, externally to people. This was a sort of tri-services one through the forces that was open more, so which bring more networking opportunities, key speakers in, and obviously all through the event was organised through Pam Russell, who worked with me on Police Race Action Plan, is the chair of our Race Inclusion Equity Association, and South Yorkshire Fire and Rescue and YAS EDI leads to bring that together, coordinated response that's wider for everybody. So there is some real good areas of working together, and we try and bring those forwards in what we're doing, but we can always do more in that everything. But there are lots of partnerships throughout policing, but I'd say they're the key ones that I work with.
Are we going to see this again during Black History Month, though? Is it coming?
So Black History Month, I think it's in its early planning phases. I don't know how it's going to be working. We are looking at a tri-services event again, but again, I wouldn't like to step on Pam's toes because she does run it through and she does a wonderful job at bringing these events together. So I don't know exactly how it's going to work, and it's still in its infancy in pulling things together and how that's going to work, but we are looking at that partnership event. Yeah, because I think it's really good for networking and opportunities as to how the blue light services can come together. Where we could do it wider, you've got to think of event spaces, etc., and making it manageable. But I think doing collaborative events are always really really impactful for our communities.
Is there, within the research action plan, is there any discussion around Black heritage recruitment in the police force at all? Is there something around that?
Yes, so we've got specific actions around looking at, we've got we want to be an employer of choice for people from all backgrounds, but we know that we are disproportionately and we're not representative in relation to Black and Black heritage officers and staff. We know that it's an area where we're lower than for other groups. So there is some targeted work. That's why we've got a positive action sergeant to look at how we are doing that. So we've got 3 strands in how to develop that, and one's obviously the recruitment strand. One is the retention piece. How do we retain the officers and staff that we've got within the organisation? And the third is career progression, and how does that look for South Yorkshire Police in relation to leadership roles or vertical lateral progressions within there, and how can we support and develop that? So I think previously there's been a lot of work around the recruitment phase, but I think there's those other elements that we need to focus on as a whole package, those 3, in relation to increasing numbers and having a sort of, like I say, that's where the plan comes around the short medium is we need to get people, we need to become that employer of choice. We need to get people interested in policing. We need to look at what the barriers and challenges are for people from different diverse backgrounds, and then we need to look at how we can overcome them and support people to come in. But that's the first step is people wanting to join us. Then obviously doing that, it's making sure when people do come in, they can see all the work that we're doing to retain and support officers, to make sure that it's that inclusive workspace that everybody wants to be at and work for, and they enjoy bringing their authentic selves to work. And then obviously thirdly, it's to show that there is progression routes for people, and that there's lots of opportunities within policing that people might not know and understand about, and how to explore different options and how to make them available for all.
Okay. In your opinion, though, because I think the numbers also seem a bit stark when you start to think about that career progression question, and also seeing the number of voluntary resignations. I think they are higher amongst Black populations as well, eventually, because of that lack of career progression. I wondered what your opinion is. What are the actual barriers to that at the moment? I know you're saying you're working towards it, but what do you think could be some of those barriers?
And I think it's difficult to say, but that is something that we are looking at and trying to understand by speaking to people and to giving those. So we have a national Black workforce survey which pulls up some data. We've got a new wave of information that will be coming out, which is available internally and external, which gives the thoughts and processes around nationally what Black people are saying, and then we do a localised survey which is anonymised, but just to get the kind of thoughts and feelings around what our officers and staff of South Yorkshire saying. And again, I think it is around the key themes that are coming up is around role models, and people not knowing where to go, not knowing what's available, people not having those allies and those supportive mechanisms in place. And unfortunately what came up from nationally more so than locally was race-related incidents, things like microaggressions within organisations where people didn't feel that they were dealt with and didn't feel valued and couldn't bring themselves to work. So that's why the work that we're doing and listening to people, it's really focused upon how do we make people feel valued at work? What opportunities are available for people to open and talk and be themselves, to build networks, to push things out. It's really key for myself to work with individuals so they can see actually that you can progress in your career, and actually that I support and show people what's available and how to kind of support them with their own development, whatever that will be, and giving them specific career goals to work towards in what we're doing. So we see in relation to I'm waffling on a little bit here,
No,
but
you're not.
I think in relation to, we're doing
Yeah.
like a peer support network scheme, and I think it's really interesting which is open to Black and Black heritage communities, but open to wider underrepresented groups, in relation to saying what key experiences are people having, and the escalation process and what support is there for people. And I think it's that key to understand that individuals sometimes coming from different backgrounds, they are coming into policing, which we know has been a predominantly white British role for many times, and coming into that, and what are the additional challenges. And I think it's not about saying that everybody who's not white British has additional challenges, but it's about understanding that there may be these additional challenges through society, and that people might need this extra bit of support, and people to come to and open up about different things around cultural barriers for people. And I think it's really key that through our peer support network that we're looking at people have those allies to talk to, and then there's an escalation process in place through me should anything need to be done about things.
So the peer support network is confined to the South Yorkshire, or is that?
Yes, so peer support network is an internal based for South Yorkshire, for underrepresented groups. Once people are in policing, it's a support network for people to regularly meet up with somebody that they're paired up with, to have those discussions, to open up any challenges and barriers, and then there's quarterly meetings that come through me to identify any key themes and put support in place for those that are offering that support to others. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. And thank you so much for being so exhaustive with that response, because people do genuinely want to know. It's not information word, so thank you for doing that. Yeah. What about on community feedback? I appreciate maybe the stop and search might not necessarily be something that is within your remit, but I think in the wider context of society, we just don't see the different departments of the police. But I wanted to ask you about community feedback, especially on the where it. Do you get community feedback that could alter, for example, a stop and search protocol or use of force as police? So
in relation to use of force and stop and search, they are very heavily scrutinised. And like I've got an independent advisory group, that make sure that everything that we decide that we're doing and prioritising for South Yorkshire is in line. There's scrutiny panels for both use of force and stop and search, separate in relation to how that is governed. So there's some real structures around there, and it is robustly looked at in various manners in relation to every aspect of stop and search. So I would say is, I don't work directly in stop and search. What I do is the stop and search lead and the use of force lead feed into the police race action plan groups, where we share information around what we can do, and we try and make sure that we're supportive with getting people from to be involved in the scrutiny panels, because we want the scrutiny panels to be as diverse as possible, to give that sort of rounded experience about what things are, what it's looking about. But there's so much scrutiny in relation to reviewing the body worn footage, reviewing what the officers are putting down, that it's there, and that feedback is there then to make improvements and make constant improvements. And I know that in relation to stop and search and use of force, we're continually looking to make improvements, and have done so, and particularly around the recording and the accuracy, and the feedback provided to officers and departments around where things are either where there's some really good practice or there's some lessons to be learned.
Right. Okay. Tell me if this is not a question you'll be able to answer, because you have explained it's not your role, but what should me, as a black person walking on the streets, I'm confronted with a stop and search moment. What are my rights in that situation? How should I address that or respond to it? I think in relation to stop and search, it's a difficult one to ask, but if somebody, with stop and search, there's a process that officers need to go through. Okay. So they need to explain who they are, what the grounds are for the search, what they're looking for within the search, and explain kind of why they're detaining you for the purpose of that search. And there's a whole piece of work which I'll not go through that they have to go, and it needs to be captured, and it's on body worn. So while they're doing these engagements with you, they should be explaining why you detained is the purpose of that search, why you've been stopped, what are the grounds for it. For example,
we're stopping you for this search because you match the description of somebody that's just been seen shoplifting from this shop across around the road. So, Jimmy, that we believe has a stolen X object. I'm searching you to look for that object and explain it. You obviously, if they've got to give you those grounds and stuff, which is you can give your account as to why. Look, I've just come from down there. It's not to say that if those grounds and objectives meet, that they can still conduct the search, but the grounds and everything that they explain to you prior to the search should be there to kind of diffuse and decipher that, and they're given that opportunities. You are entitled to that record. It should be all recorded on body-worn video, and that interaction, and most importantly, it should be fair and transparent, regardless of whether they have that obligation to explain it to you and to treat you with respect throughout that search, regardless.
Right. Okay. So from the moment the expectation is that from the moment they're talking to you, that recording is happening.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So recorded and the explanations in relation to searching, unless obviously some things at the time that can't happen. So it's not for everybody. We're talking about somebody who's just stopping and being compliant. So there is obviously caveats to everything, but there's a process in order to protect the person that's being searched and the officer.
Okay. Can we speak a bit about accountability and transparency? Just a little bit of that. One of the stories that's current and present here within the UK context is the case of Chris Cabba's shooting, and the officer involved in that faces only internal misconduct proceedings. It feels, I think, to most of us in the public that police disciplinary outcomes do rarely feel truly independent. I just wanted you to make a comment on that because it's not something I can ignore. It's so present.
Yeah, and I think what's key to explain is the work around the Police Face Action Plan is a framework in how we can improve everything for Black and Black heritage communities. So in relation to our professional standards department that do investigate misconduct and gross misconduct against officers, we're doing some work around there, but our role within it is not to enforce the police conduct regulations. That's completely separate. Okay. So in relation to any wrongdoings by officers or investigations that officers go through, they are governed by police conduct regulations, which is separate to the Police Face Action Plan. Police Face Action Plan is sort of guidance and support of how we should be doing things better to support Black and Black heritage communities. So from my perspective, we're working with professional standards around looking at what the challenges are to supporting and improving things for Black and Black heritage people, whether that's internally and externally. So that's looking at challenges and barriers to the reporting mechanisms, looking at challenges and barriers through the vetting processes and how that kind of looks. We wouldn't be able to look around. The structures are in place, we believe, in relation to reporting both internally and nationally through IOPC, but it is about how we can improve that for people by looking at what the issue is. So for me, the main issue at the moment is that reporting phase, as opposed to, but the outcomes, etc., are something that's governed through the misconduct regulations. So it's difficult through this to explain it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but then you have talked about challenges to reporting mechanisms. What do those look like potentially? What could they be?
Yeah, and I think it's funny because we look at reporting through what's coming out and what's said in national surveys. So we have a look at the National Black Workforce Survey, the Wave 2 findings, which said 81% of Black and Black heritage officers nationally have dealt with a race-related incident in the last 12 months and considered leaving policing. And then you go to look at our local findings and the reportings that's gone through for misconduct cases, and the reporting is nowhere near what people have said. So we're talking about a high percentage of officers and staff saying that they're involved in race-related incidents, usually with people within the organisation as the perpetrator. And then you go to our reporting and there's near enough no incidents reported. So it's that disparity there. And our head of professional standards, James Axe, is really keen in thinking, why we're not getting that reported, and we've just getting a working group together with our internal Black Action and an advisory group to support with that as to how we can make that more open and transparent, because we need the reporting. And even if it's that, I think what I wouldn't like to hesitate, I could guess, but I wouldn't like to comment on why people are saying that this is happening but not reporting it to professional standards, is what we need to really overcome, because we've got the mechanisms in place to report things that are outside this standards of professional behaviour, but we need to make sure they are reported effectively, whether that's through the grievance process or through the misconduct world, through PSD. And we are looking at now, so the Police Risk Action Plan is working with those two entities to try and drive improvements in that area, because we just haven't got the reporting against what says in the surveys.
Okay. Have you, through your career, I mean, you're Chief Inspector now, but you had to start from somewhere. Were there moments when you felt you weren't able to report things that you use the reporting mechanisms that you think that could have been, but there were barriers there? Yeah,
and I think now, for me, and the role that I do and the forums that I have, I know all the reporting mechanisms. I know how I would escalate things and speak things and make sure, and obviously being an advocate for the work that I'm doing, I'd be the one to shout loudest. Obviously I've had 20 years in policing within 2 different police forces, and 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, things were a lot different, and sometimes it was, even for me, it was easier, and I've really had to change my mindset in the last, say, 5 years around how I don't put up with things, how I do openly challenge and be that one to step forward and be that upstander to support and people others. I'm the highest ranking Black Heritage officer in South Yorkshire Police, so if I don't do it, I can't expect other people to do it. But previously in my career, I wouldn't like to say that I haven't turned a blind eye because things are easier. Well, mainly, obviously, 20 years ago I was in another force, but things were different, the climate was different, policing was different, and sometimes it is easier to assimilate to the culture and get on with things, particularly as a new student officer, than it is to be raising your head above the parapet, whereas now I'm out there to shout out and proud and to support them and be that ally to others.
Thanks for your service. That's great. 2025 now, 2030. What has the South Yorkshire Police Race Action Plan achieved?
Hopefully, obviously the training that's gone out, has rolled out, has had some real impact on the internal culture, and we've assessed and evaluated where that is and where we're going to keep going. So even though we're having the training that'll go in for be mandatory for everyone, it's how that then develops. So it's not going to be one-off training. It's then how we use, it's called like that nudge activity, to continue to drop things in so that it's continuing on people's mindsets and how people are held accountable for developing their own CPD and while we're supporting them going through. So it's not a one-off process. We've done the impactive bit, but then it's kept going and it's built some right impetus, and hopefully, like you say, it's had an impact on culture change within policing. All the reporting mechanisms around vehicle stops, which we've now launched, around the recording of ethnicity data there. We've got data from that. We've already got the data around stop search and use of force. We understand what that looks like, and we've identified and made any changes and adaptations that we need to from what the data's telling us and how we need to do some workarounds. So that would be a key thing. We've got a real understanding around that positive action activity that we're driving. So we've got people that are wanting to join SYP as an employer, but not only that, we've got that progression pool of talent coming through. So it's not just everybody coming in and just to be a police officer, police constable or a member of staff. We've got that pool of talent for moving forward for key leadership roles, and that's going on. I'm hoping that there is somebody soon that takes over my role and surpasses me and jumps me because of their talent that they hold from a different diverse background, that skips over me and becomes that role model that I can look up to within South Yorkshire Police, because we've got that other visibly diverse face up there in a key leadership role. So hopefully that's what it looks like for me.
That's what it looks like in 2030. Well, thank you so very much, Chief Inspector Laurie Millington of the South Yorkshire Police. Thank you so much for joining us on African Voices platform. My name is Chihana. Good night.